Jonathan, so I think we're ready to start. You want to give it a minute or two? Look at that. Looks like you're here. Apology. Jonathan, I think you're on mute.
I was on mute. Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear. Well, clear, not that loud.
Okay, great. So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the September edition of JoziPug. Hope you're all keeping warm. The sudden cold front has really made things miserable today. I thought the picture would be appropriate for what we're going through at the moment. Now, just some logistics as usual for those online. Just make sure you're keeping yourself muted just to minimize the amount of background noise. The session is being recorded and it is uploaded to our YouTube channel. I will share, I've actually got the wrong slide on. Give me a second. There we go. That's a better one. The recordings of the session will be uploaded to our YouTube channel, so go and check it out. We've got all of our past episodes there as well, so if you have missed anything, definitely go and check it out. Okay, now we do have a jam-packed agenda tonight. We're going to be going through in the news. We're then going to go through a session about building collaborative solutions with the Power Platform. We're then looking at the certification paths available, and then we'll have an open discussion at the end. As usual, if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand. Those in the room, David does have the microphone, so just make sure you are speaking into the microphone so we can get it on the recording and the others online can also hear. Okay, so without further ado, let's jump into the news. Switch over here quickly, there we go. So, great one, big thing that's coming out is Canvas built-in offline is now enabled. This used to be an experimental feature. It's been around since about May this year, and we've been taking feedback from our customers and we've been making lots of changes to this. Now, you can go and enable it when you go into your settings, the general settings, and there's can be used offline toggle that you can set up on there. And then what it does is it goes and downloads all of the data that's needed from the server. Now, we are able to generate these packs that determine what content comes offline. The auto-generated mode for these offline apps works well for small and simple apps. But if you've got a large complex app, you would need to go and customize that offline profile. But for a lot of the situations, the automated generated profile will work perfectly fine. Some of the limitations at the moment is we don't support Dataverse files or images at the moment. Now, we do understand that this is a major requirement and they're working hard to make sure that they can bring this feature in as quickly as possible. Also, non-Dataverse connectors are not supported just yet. So it's only working on Dataverse. Things like SharePoint are not supported in offline at the moment. So just a reminder, if you are building this, you want to enable it in the Power App Studio, you just go to your general settings, go to the toggle that says can be used offline, and that will start the process for you. But this definitely is a needed request in. Next one, we are enabling additional modernizations and theming for Power Apps. There's been 3 controls that have been updated. The table, you can see on the screen from the GIF there, how the new modern table works. When you resize it, it's able to adjust the layout, so it looks a lot more like a gallery inside there, but it's still a table. So you get that more modern control and modern experience inside there. It also now boasts infinite scrolling as well, so you can be able to bring in quite large tables, and we are expanding to other connectors soon as well. So it works great for Dataverse, other connectors are being brought in as well. With the text one, the ability to highlight text in the text control, which will allow for unblocked copy and paste on the text control itself. And then also you can see the date picker has also been updated to be a much more modern control. There's a new date format property, so you can do short, long abbreviated, and year, month, and much more across the board inside there. So it's great to see them bringing out these modern controls inside. Next one, PowerFX is finally at version 1. So this means that it's been trialed and tested. I mean, we've been using PowerFX for many years already. Now, eventually, it's reached version 1. Though, at this stage in Power Apps, doesn't mean that much just yet. Power Apps still uses the pre 1.0 version of PowerFX. Now, over the next couple of months, we'll be updating it to 1 to match the rest of the Power Platform. Now, what you can do is you can, if you want to start playing around with it, there is a toggle that's rolling out in the experimental section that you can go and turn on to use PowerFX 1.0. So then you'll get, there's been some slight changes to the language. There's not much that's been an impact, but I'll share a link to the details inside there so you can get more insights. Okay. Let's go. Next one is we're bringing out new ways of creating tables. So when you're in Dataverse, you'll see there's a couple of ways. Karika showed us creating from an Excel file previously. You can also see we can start with a blank table and then also create a virtual table directly in the Dataverse experience. So we're bringing out those new ways with Copilot, with Excel to go in and create the tables, just making it quicker and easier for developers to get going. Of course, it's powered by Copilot. Now, more Copilot news. We are bringing Copilot into model-driven apps. Now, this enables Copilot to evolve more rapidly based on your feedback as well, bringing value in much smaller and quicker increments instead of making you wait for the yearly update. So this is now part of the monthly channel. So inside there, you'll be able to work on that data and be able to ask questions and get insights on the information that's contained in that app. Within Canvas-based apps, we've been listening to the feedback, and we are here to say that now there is no size limit on the data that you can bring in. Previously, when you're working with it, we were restricted with the amount of rows that it would be able to process. Now there is no limit whatsoever. And both of these coming through. So the other thing that we're bringing in is you can now utilize the Copilot's control selected items. So when you ask it a question, it will be able to respond with an answer, and that answer can then be used in, say, a gallery, for example. So you can ask it to search for certain criteria, certain items inside there, and that will be able to populate the gallery for you, just giving a lot more flexibility to what you can do with Copilot in your application. So for me, that's everything that I've got for in the news today. Was there anything else that anyone had picked up on or heard or would like to just talk about and discuss? Chat quickly. Perfect. So with that, I'm going to hand over to the next speaker. Thanks, everyone. Hope you have a great day.
Thank you, Jonathan. So we've got a very special guest all the way from Durban in like on Monday, right? Yesterday. Especially for this. So yeah, so that's we feel very privileged to have you here today. Give him a warm round of applause. So we're very much looking forward to this. I know I am, and I know a lot of people. There's some really cool stuff that he's show us. So going to hand over the mic.
Just grabbing my mouse. Okay, this is working. Cool.
David, can you just share because the screen share is not coming through to the recording? Thanks, Michael.
Is it good now?
It is good now. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm very excited to be here. We don't have many user groups in Durban, so I need to do something about that. But yeah, my name is Gomolemo, or Gomo for short. I'm a cloud advocate here at Microsoft, specifically working on Power Apps. I'm on the Power Platform team, so I have Daniel, who focuses on Power Automate and other pro dev tooling. My manager, who some of you might know, April Dunham, that always gets me some bonus points. And yeah, we work with the not just Power Platform folks, but also the entire breadth of Cloud Advocate to work with things like .NET and Java and how we can integrate those toolings with the Power Platform. So today specifically, we're going to be speaking about how pro devs or non-Power Platform devs can quickly get started with the Power Platform. So there are ways that some of us may know, like, for example, building custom connectors or APIs or extending UI with React components. But there are a few new ways, and they were touched on in the news segments, that I would just like to highlight to just show you how those work. So before we speak about that, a lot of pro devs that I specifically speak to, I don't know about you guys, they are very, they're not as responsive when it comes to low-code tools. And I can understand why. Why? Because as someone with a background in pro dev myself, I very much like that, you know, dark mode, Visual Studio, coding to the end, you know, all nights. It's a very exhilarating experience, so that when there's this new tool that is completely opposed to what I've known about development, I can understand why some people wouldn't want to touch on it as much. But when it comes to local platforms in general, it's important to understand that it's not just for pro devs. As seen at the bottom, it's used to bridge the gap between IT pros, pro devs, and business apps or business app makers, driving a collaborative approach to problem solving. And that is the main theme of what we'll be doing today. Again, the famous Power Platform slide. We all know and love that there are 5 main products, you know, Power Apps, Automate, PVA, Pages, and BI, as well as the supporting services like the connectors that we have, the AI models that we have access to with AI Builder, our app platform, Dataverse, which is so much more than just a storage platform. Our low-code programming language, Power FX, which again is now at that 1.0 versioning. So there's some new features being added there that's bringing it closer to a traditional programming language, but for low-code devs, as well as managed in environments for low-code lifecycle management. So with that, what's great about the Power Platform is that it is so extensive, especially to other products in the Microsoft Cloud. I know this slide is very salesy. It sounds like I'm selling something to you, but that's just the beauty of the Microsoft Cloud, is that none of these products work on their own. They're actually better if you use them in conjunction with other apps. Like for the Power Platform, you can build apps that live in teams, or you can create desktop flows that speak to legacy-based systems that live on your PC. You don't have to have a cloud or web-based app for you to use the Power Platform with. You know, Azure, Visual Studio, GitHub, all of these are tools that can be used nicely with the Power Platform. And in using some of those tools, a lot of companies now are moving from the old way of doing things and bringing old, outdated cycles. I don't want to say apps, it's more about the entire cycle into the cloud with the Power Platform, no matter how old they are or how outdated or how, how they're not as collaborative as you would expect a modern cloud-based app to be. And that's what the Power Platform, in conjunction with the other products, are doing. Oops, that was not supposed to be there. Let me. Okay, it seems like I was fiddling with too many things in the car. Right, what I wanted to show, let me just quickly. I don't know if that is, yes. The Fusion team development story, or some people don't like the Fusion name, they rather say it's the collaborative story, where you are using not just the local tools, but everything else in that entire breadth together to build apps. Having a solution built on Power Apps alone is not really something that can work for you and your business. It's important to integrate that with things like Azure Functions to deploy micro apps to certain cloud-based platforms to optimize the features that you have in your Power Apps, using things like API management to manage the APIs built on Visual Studio instead of just blindly sending them out and wrapping them into a custom connector. Power BI, using things like Azure Synapse, or now with the broader Microsoft Fabric. I'm not too much of a Power BI person, but those integrations work just as well with Power BI and everything else. If you look at things like PVA, integrating the low-code way of building bots on PVA with the extensibility of the bot framework from Microsoft, or Azure OpenAI service, and putting that into those apps is something that we should all strive to do when we are building out these apps. So with that, we're just going to be touching on 3 main features that are quite new within the last couple of months that pro devs might lean towards, especially when they are starting out with the Power Platform. So let me just switch on over. I don't know how the sharing works. Is that on my end? There you go. Whatever happened, happened. Perfect. So I have obviously the homepage of Power Apps. Most of us are familiar with it. And if you haven't used the app in the last couple of months, there's this brand new banner at the very top where you are able to build apps with natural language. So if you want to quickly build an app that, for example, collects RSVPs for a party or something like this, you can just describe it, and then Copilot will build the app and the database for you. but we're not going to be doing that. We're going to take the scenario of maybe as a pro dev. I know this is very arbitrary, unlikely to happen. But as a pro dev, you're given an Excel sheet that's been the backbone of this company for years. Now we need to turn it into a cloud-based Power App. And as a pro dev, I don't know how to use Power Apps. I don't know how to, put all these features like make it responsive and connecting it to Dataverse. I just have the Excel sheet and I have the Power Apps website here. So what we're going to do, we're going to click on this new banner here called Starts with Data. And then that will take you to this page where there's a bunch of options where you can get started. So you can start with a blank table, select an existing table, select external data. In this case, for this first one, we're going to upload an Excel file. So let's select the file that we've been given. So this file is just a list of real estate properties, things like the address, the size, the price, all of those little things. And what the copilot is doing, it's reading that Excel file and taking notes of each of the columns data types. And it's translating that, hopefully, into a Dataverse table, which it just popped up now. So these are the records that were inside that Excel file. So as you can see, there's all these various columns here, and it's able to tell, for example, for the address, which I think is the most simple one, that is a single line of text, which a text format, that's fine. Let's go into price, and it knows that that is currency. And it's important to note that I did not format the Excel file that made this. It was all text, but Copilot was able to see or to interpret the type of data that we need for this table. So with that, we can just see if everything is okay. We can change the table name if you want to, maybe change the primary column. And then click Create, okay? So it does take a bit of a while. So I'm not going to click, and I just have this opened up. Literally in the car here, I set this up, so I did not touch it from that previous step. So once you click on Create App, then it comes to this. So it opens up an app for you, as well as the Copilot chat on your right-hand side. That also might be new for some of you. So this Copilot chat, you can toggle at any time in the app making process. And if you look at the list of suggestions, there's things like add a text label, add a gallery. You can add all these different things, especially if you're one that is not familiar with the platform. This Copilot is there for you. So let's just quickly have a look at the app that has been made. I'll just go ahead and preview the app. So yeah, so it lists all our property items here. And of course, as we click on any of them, the data shows up on the right. We can edit, we can add new items. It's already a fully functional app. And what's interesting is that it's also responsive straight out of the bat. So you can use these toggles here on the side of the app to just see how it would look like in different phone sizes and different screens. So you can already see, from the get-go that it is indeed a responsive app. So we could just leave the app as is. It's pretty much done. However, let's play a bit with Power FX and see how someone who comes from a pro dev might approach using a low-code language inside of Power Apps. So I'll just zoom in here towards the left side of the app in this gallery. And there's a few things I would like to change. So for example, let me just go into this template cell. That you can see is tied to the address column. That's fine. Maybe for this, we want to tie it to the size. And then for the second one, we'd like to tie it to let's say price. Okay. And that is as far as my Power FX skills go. But luckily, we have a tool called Power Apps Ideas. Now, this is one of Microsoft's earliest implementations of the GPT model in a Microsoft product. So this was, I think, back in May of 2021, where we could use GPT to generate a coding language, a programming language. So it was using the Codex model from OpenAI to generate code from natural language. And what I mean by that is if you just click here on that text formatting button, this side panel will open up. Now I'm on the price column there. And what I can do with that is I can format by example, right? So I have the actual raw data on the left, and then on the side, it will pull up a list of instructions, but I can just do it on my own, so you can just type it in. But basically, I would say I want my app to show the price in that format, but I don't know how. So as I clicked it, you can see that it generated PowerFX code at the bottom here. That I can simply just click on apply, and if I close out the pane, you can then see everything in the gallery is now in that format. Very cool. And I did not have to know the PowerFX formula to do that. Now, sometimes you might get something that's a bit more complex. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go to the template. So I'll click on the size, and we'll do the same thing. We'll do the text formatting. And this is the size of the property, right? So I'm just going to write down what I would like it to look like. Again, that's the current format. And then so I would like to show as the size to tell me that this is the size. It's 1.8 square feet, right? So we can then click on that button. And as you can see, Copilot quite doesn't understand what I'm trying to do. Again, it's not a perfect thing. It doesn't always work, but that's just because it needs additional context. And we can add that additional context by just clicking on add examples, right? Which will draw from the rest of the data from that table. So let's click on just two. We'll just do two more. And for the sake of time, what is the instruction right here? Sorry? Yeah, no, it doesn't know. Yeah, it doesn't know. It's trying to, why is it? Yeah, so that forms part of the limits of Copilot right now. It can only be trained on what is readily available. But when it comes to things like this is a bit tricky. But for example, for like currency, if it does see a negative value, it will probably handle that pretty easily. But you are right. There are some edge cases where you might think everything is good, and then you run the app and you have some arbitrary value, and it will probably break. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Just to show exactly what I want, you do have to be quite, yeah, for sure. And hopefully that will generate a formula that looks good. I'll click on apply. And with that added context, it now understands what it needs to do to the app. Right, so again, I did not need any specific skills to, one, build the app that's responsive, where you can actually edit data and write back to the database. And I added some additional features, or I formatted the data with PowerFX formulas that I didn't know how to write. So that is pretty cool. Yeah, that is pretty cool. But then we can do so much more than just this. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to speak on what was discussed in the first section, the virtual tables. And a virtual table, or that specific feature in the Power Platform, has been there for a while now, but the experience now is much more cleaner, it's much more easier. And basically, for those that don't know, creating a virtual table inside of the Power Platform is mirroring a data set from elsewhere. So in this case, it'll be from a SharePoint list or a SQL Server database up on Azure. Those are the only two data sources that it supports right now. But if a pro dev is working on a web app and they are using data in a SQL Server database on Azure, and I want to use that same data here in my Dataverse table, I'm able to create a virtual table that basically mirrors that data. It doesn't copy the data through. It doesn't save the data to your Dataverse. The data is not persisted in any way. It just enables you to work with that data in a low-code fashion. So for that, here is the SQL Server inside of Azure. So we'll just go to the database specifically, and let's open it up in Query Editor. I'll just log in real quick. So I have this major database that only has one table. So I'll just make this to let you know that this table does indeed have data. This is sitting inside of Azure that can be used in a whole sorts of different apps. So let's bring this data into Dataverse. So again, the Power Apps homepage. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the tables section here. And then from there, there's these different tags that we can now use. This is also quite brand new. So we have describe the new table. This is similar to what you can do on the homepage where we describe the app and it makes the app for you. In this case, you can just describe a table that you want, and it'll just create a Dataverse table. Same thing with the Excel file. Previously, I uploaded a file, it created a table and an app. In this sense, it just creates the table for you. Then we have the same old start with a blank table, and then we have the new create a virtual table experience. So I've just clicked that. And the first thing is to make sure that your connection is good. Again, like I said, these are the only two data sources right now. There will be adding more. So I've created a connection to SQL Server. And then what I need the SQL Server name as well as the SQL database name. And I can get that from Azure, which I'll just show you now. So I'm in the server. I'll go to overview, and the server name is this long name. So it's the actual server name .database.windows.net. So copy that over, and then I will need the name of the database. So let's grab the name. Back to Power Apps, paste, and then I'll click on next, and hopefully it will try and get all the tables that I have inside of that database, which it did. The appointments table is what I need. Let's go to next. And then this will then pull in all the fields from that table, or in other words, the columns. So it also gives you a chance to change the name so that if you don't want it to match with your SQL Server database, that's fine. And then it also gives you a chance to change the display name. As you know, some people might have different naming conventions, so it gives you that chance as well. Then once you're happy, just click on next. It just shows you that it will take this database from this server and it will mirror that data into a Dataverse table. And then once we're done, we just click on finish. Now, some might think that if your database is massive, this process will take a long time, but that is not the case because, again, it's not bringing that data from Azure into Dataverse. It's not copying the data. It's just mirroring the formats, and then you'll be able to see the data inside of Dataverse, even though it's coming from Azure. So you won't be able to perform specific functions like search, for example, because the data is actually not there. It's just coming from SQL. As you can see, there is the data right there. Then once it's here, you can do all the normal Power Platform Dataverse things like creating a model-driven app or adding relationships with existing tables inside of your Dataverse. And there you go. If you have a table inside of Azure, you can easily bring it into Dataverse just like that. And then the last thing I wanted to just cover is the topic of custom connectors. Now, I think this game has not changed for a while, where you can either create a connector inside of the portal, or if you are a pro dev, you can create a web API and you can publish that into the Power Platform. However, what if you wanted to test the API before publishing into Power Apps? And we can do that with the brand new VS connected service for the Power Platform. So if you have Visual Studio, I think it's version 17.7, Power Platform is now an official connected service. So how we can go about doing that is we'll open up Visual Studio, we'll create a new project, and that connected service works specifically for the .NET Core Web API project templates. So we'll just click on that. And of course, we can name it and all of that. And then you can choose the framework. All of this is just things that are personal to you. And then also, if you want, you can also use minimal APIs. So it's not just for APIs that have traditional controllers. So again, just to time's sake, I've already created a project here. And I have a very, very, very complex API that just has country and city name. That's all. I've sort of hard-coded the database to match the city name to its country. And I have 3 main endpoints there. So get cities with the parameter of country, as well as get countries. So now that we have our web API, what we can do is inside of Visual Studio, there's a connected services tab there. What we can do is we can just right-click on that and click Manage Connected Services. And then we'd add a service dependency. So let's go ahead and add that. And over here, what we can do is we can look for Power. And as you can see, there is the connected service, which is pretty cool. So one thing is to make sure that you are logged in with the same email that you use to create your Power Apps, to create your tables and so forth. And then you have a bunch of options that are very specific for you. So again, environments, I'll pick this one. And you can even pick the specific solution that you want, which is pretty cool. So I did make one. There you go. And then custom connector. This is obviously a new connector, but if you want to name it specifically, I'll just name this and say JoziPug, just for the vibes. And then obviously, if you are familiar with creating connectors in a general sense, you'll know that it uses the OpenAI version 2 specification, but in this case, you can have the web API generate one for you. You don't have to have a specific file for that. And then I'm going to go ahead and create a dev tunnel. I'm just going to make sure that, I don't know why it's not connecting me. I'm going to log in. While I create the dev tunnel, I will explain what it actually is. Oops. There you go. So I'll just create a name quickly. I'm not going to explain too much of it now because I want you to see it in action. But once I'm finished with everything, I can then just go next and then select finish. So there's a few things that it's doing in this specific process. One, it's obviously going to convert the web API to the OpenAI doc, and then send that through to the Power Platform to create the connector. Once it's done with all of that, there is a final step, which is that dev tunnel that I just created now. What's cool about a dev tunnel is that, again, earlier on I spoke about how do developers test their APIs before going into the Power Platform. They can use this dev tunnel to run their API from Visual Studio, quickly create a basic Power App, connect their API to that Power App, and they can debug while running the Power App connected to their API. So you can add breakpoints in your .NET code, and as you are pressing things and doing things inside of the Power Platform, it'll actually go to those breakpoints where you can debug and test and make sure that your APIs are working as planned. So I'm just going to go ahead and close this since that is done. Let's go ahead and run the API just so you'll see what it actually does. So it'll come to this. So this is opening the dev tunnel. So we'll go ahead and continue. And that will open up the actual API in the Swagger file. And then what we can do is, again, from Visual Studio, right, you can open up Power Apps, right? And the Power Apps, based on the details that you put in, it knows what an environment it needs to open up, and it'll open up directly to, let me just wait for it to load up. It should open up the connector that we just made, which is over here. So that is pretty cool. But now, since the connector is there, let's go ahead and quickly make a very basic Power App. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just keep it in tablet mode. Let's create. I don't know if I put this on. Oh, online. Okay. So again, quick app. What I can do is, let me go and insert. Let's have gallery open up. So we'll put a vertical gallery there. Let me just have that. And then, before I even do anything, let's bring in the connector that we just had. So let's go ahead, add data, connectors. Obviously, it is custom, so we'd have to search. What did I call it again? Okay, that's not good. Yeah, JP something. I think it was this one. There you go. Yeah. So again, you can bring it in. And I think it's important to note that this is not published yet. This is still the one that's running from Visual Studio. As you can see, it is still running, right? So we'll bring it in. And let's wait for that to come in. And then once it's in, what I can do to my gallery, let's do it a little me just do this. Items. And then we can call our connector. Let me get the name. Okay. Power platform, cities. Got countries, right? Let's have that. And then while that loads in, let's go to we're gonna go to value. Right, so as you can see, that is running straight from the API. But now what I wanted to do is, let me quickly add a second gallery. This is just because of the other things, but it's fine. We'll leave that. Let's go ahead and add, let's do blank this time so there's no funny errors. We want this, but we'll change it up just now. And then what we want for this, let's add insert pane. I'm going to add a text input, text label, sorry. And then this will be get cities, but then it's going to come from the selection from the second, from the first gallery. So gallery one, we'll just have gallery one dot selected. And then, so now it has two, it's like, oops. Do this. So hard working with one hand. No, that's fine, it's fine, it's fine. Let me, yeah, I was just trying to, let's do half of that, so let's do 300. No, man, not the gallery, man. The templates. Then just do this. Okay. So we're gonna have gallery dot selected with value. So let me just run the app quickly. Oops, why is it running the, oh, did I call the wrong? Sorry. Yeah, sorry. I was meant to put the, what's the name of our connector again? PP. Get cities. Sorry, I was meant to do it here. Yeah, it's sorry, my mind is. Yeah, sorry, my mind is going. I'm coming now. Sorry, that's what I mean. That's what I meant to do. Sorry about that. So it's running from the API. And then just to show that the dev tunnel itself is working, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my API and I'll put a breakpoint over here by the get cities. I'll use hot reload, .NET devs. This is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful function. And then when I go back to my app, and then let me click on Brazil, right? You see that it comes to that breakpoint. So we are able to debug it as it's running live inside of the Power Platform. Now, if I stop this, the connection to that connector is no longer live, right? Because I haven't published it yet. That's when I would go back to Visual Studio and add a connected service for API management or any other way you would publish your API in a traditional sense. So these are some of like the pro dev tools that we are working on for pro dev specifically, so that it's easier for them to work with the Power Platform. Another way, and again, we don't have much time, but another way that we can remove the pro dev experience from Power Apps, they don't even have to go into the portal to make the Power App. They can use the Power Platform CLI dev tool, and they can use the PAC, I think it's Create Canvas function to create a Power App from then, and then use the dash controller ID to bring that controller from your web API into Power Apps. So these are just some of the ways to get you started very quickly, very easily as a pro dev on the platform. Hopefully this works fine. And I do have a couple of resources specifically for pro devs. The aka.ms/power for pros. This is customer stories, workshops, videos specifically for pro developers using the Power Platform. And the second one, aka.ms/Fusion Dev Path, is an entire learning path on Microsoft Learn that shows you as a pro developer how you can build certain elements for the Power Platform. So not limited to APIs, to React components for UI elements, and all these other things that you can do as a pro dev that's separate from the experience of a citizen maker, but also it's what's the word? It's collaborative in a sense that you are working together with citizen devs to build Power Platform solutions. I wouldn't be amiss if I did not mention we do have a Microsoft Power Platform conference. It is a long way from home. It is very far. So if you are able to make it, it'll be really cool. We have not just parts for Power Apps, PVA, and all of our other products. We have specific parts for specific makers. So an IT Pro part, we have a Pro Dev part, and we have a citizen dev part. So all three main stakeholders in the Power Platform experience, there is something for you at the conference. I do have a workshop, or I'm working on a workshop that will be presented there, which really speaks about how can pro devs use GitHub Actions and the application lifecycle management inside of the Power Platform efficiently. And with that, I would like to thank you. Any questions? I don't know if I can see questions from here. Yeah. Okay. Oh no, that's square feet. That was text that I put there, so it doesn't really know. Yeah, so if it's text, it will just copy it. Yeah. Yeah. So it understands just anything that you give. I think that's just the thing of GPT in general. It will do what you tell it to do. It might not always understand what you are saying.
Yeah, that was just a joke.
Oh.
Being American and all.
Sure. Any other questions online as well? Okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you.
Excellent, man. Thank you very much. Warm round of applause. Thank you so much. Well done. Well done. Fresh from Durban. Excellent. So now we've got Monai up for certification paths. So something I think some of us, well, everybody actually should pay a lot of attention to. I think exciting stuff. And everybody likes certification, right?
Love it. So on the certification path, the interesting thing is that, we had a little bit of a debate, and I found a friend who is actually, they call him an MCT, so he's a certified trainer. So asking a bit around it, when it comes to certifications, what's currently available, view it, and then a little bit of how many people are actually certified. So with certifications on Power Platform, so the first thing I would recommend, and this is normally what I do, is you go and get the poster for the Power Platform dynamics. I print this and I go and I mark off what I want to study for the year. Something else I've heard a lot of people talk around is, does this actually form part of your KPIs in the office work? I know with us, we have to be certified, so there's a lot of certification that needs to happen, and there's different forms of that. When we talk around certification, definitely, you can go do the exams, you can instructor-led certifications. There's sorry about that. I can see now, right? Okay. So let me start over. No, I'm joking. So also with certifications, this is your friend, the certification path as well. And you'll also see that based on your level, we call it levels, right? So level 100 to level 3 or 400, you get different certification paths. So normally what happens is when somebody starts off with a new platform, so let's say it is Power Apps, they would start with the fundamentals. That's normally level 100. Some great resources that we have is essentially there is a YouTube channel with this, yeah, PL 900. Yes, I know. That's how they roll. Yeah. So essentially, on the YouTube channel, she takes you through the different levels and also, where to start, especially if you're new enroll. Talking around what you should look out for in this space, right? So from the fundamentals right through to, for instance, the developer, the PL 400, that is, I think, equivalent to probably level 300 and up. Some of the information that you guys saw earlier today, right through to things like RPA. In actual fact, what's pretty nice is that Microsoft is also open for feedback on the exams, right? So you can also sometimes write a mock exam, or you can write the exam that's in beta and provide feedback for them. That is just essentially for them.
In this video, I'm going to take you.
But essentially, that is for things like, how do I, some of the answers we didn't understand, or, the layout of the exam is a little bit different. When it comes to exams, right, some of the guides we can definitely say there is skills measured section in all of the exams for the certification part. Make sure that the exams you guys are writing is updated. So, I get a notification, for instance, I think it's every year or two when exam needs to rewrite it. Yeah. There is some free guides that's available, and then also Microsoft Learn is your friend. Sorry, okay, I'll do that. So Microsoft Learn is your friend. There is free guides available. Sometimes you can even, I believe you can even pay, and then you get some of the open guides that helps you prepare for the exams. Also, we've recently announced what we call open books, right? So what happens is that with open books on the Microsoft Learn site, you would go and we would partake in the exam, and it will actually open a split screen where you can go and research and then provide some of the exams, things like that. This is exactly what I was talking about, the open book exams. And I'll show you guys quickly how that looks like just on the blog post. And I think that if I just go in here, you'll see that for each and every certification, there is the different study guides, right? So if I go into the PL 900, for instance, it shows me how to prepare for this exam, right? And, you know, some of the changes that happens, also, you know, how it's scored, updates, notes, skills measured. And this is what I was saying earlier on, around what do you need to look out for, where do you need to focus, and what, because it can be quite a lot of information that's available, right? I know that for us writing exams, there's also different ways of writing exams. So you can actually go into an exam center. I think there is one just around the corner here, or if you're like Michael, drive to the one in Pretoria. Or you can also do it online, right? So there is also an option where you switch on your camera and they scan your room and you do it in your own home or leisure, right? This is a great way to actually look into certifications. From a certification perspective, we've got what they call a learning path. So what you can do is also, if you go on the Microsoft Learn site, you'll see here there's different types of learning paths. So for instance, I would start with the fundamentals, and then I can also work myself up into a different exam based on the role that I play. So, and the reason why Microsoft has done that is just because, you know, sometimes you are more consultant than a developer, so there's no need for you to learn PL 400 dev exam if you're just a consultant, right? So yeah, I think that, oh, and lastly is when you are done with the exams and you pass the exams, you get a badge. So people like to display their badges, and, you know, I think it's pretty awesome that you can, you know, show all of your badges and things that you've done. So I think I'm going to just open it for a few minutes and hear your feedback on exams, what you guys think about it. I know sometimes there's even, you know, this shows $99, but sometimes there's even exam vouchers available that you can enter discount codes and write the exams for free. Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yes. I can't talk on changes from the exam perspective, right? I think that there's a whole team that looks and takes feedback on that. You know, I've also seen that when you write your exam, you can actually post feedback, and they would take that and look into that. But definitely, you know, we've had this in the past as well. We've got a lot to learn, and then I only ask a subset of that. I think it depends on what exam you take, right? Because some of the exams, like the entry-level exams, is more around the concept of it, and know the products, know what they do, versus a more in-depth exam that will give you, you know, this is the specific areas of focus that you have to look at. Yes, yes. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Mm. Yeah. So what I experienced, not like Michael, but in the past, what would happen is the answers would be very similar. So it's exactly, you know, if it's not blue, green, and red, then it's wrong. Most correct answer, yes. 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 Correct. Yeah. I've realized now what happens is it's more scenario based, right? So they've got a scenario and they provide scenario examples, and yeah, it works quite well. I don't know. Yes. Yes. Assessment. Mm. Mhm. Yep. Correct. Yes. Yeah. Not sure why it's not displaying. Yes. So yes, it's still there. Yes. Yeah. So also with the there's also with the certifications and additional things that you can do, you can actually become what we call a MCT. It's a Microsoft Certified Trainer. You have to present and teach people about the product, but it's quite a nice path to go down as well. If ever you want to become an MCT, you know they've got a whole section for that as well. And then you can, I think you can go to end users and show them and teach them, present at communities. You get your latest pack of information, I guess, you know, similar to the content that the MVPs get. Oh, okay. Yep. So, I mean, I would love to understand anybody's like exam and certification, you know, path and things they've been doing. I've been doing this from Dynamics CRM 2011, right? And then you had physical manuals that you had to go and get, thick books, and the exams were very difficult. It's very much you had to learn SQL, AD, all of the stuff with it. And I think it's just much more easier now. You've got videos and you can play around with the tech. Smarter now as well. Yes. Yeah. Just to, I don't know why this is. No more questions online. Okay, I think that's it from my side. I don't know why the screen is black, but anyway. Next. So there's a question in the back. So something that they mentioned, especially with the open book, right? There's no extra time allowed. So you can have the open book. I can maybe just quickly show you guys as very extra time. Yeah. So for instance, this is, let me see if I can zoom in. Anyway, so this is a question and it will show you the time there. And when you go and say open book, it will let you split the screen and you can use open book on the one side. Yes. Yeah. Yes, Michael. If you press all of the key combos that you know, you might get something else. Yeah. But eventually it will give you a dual screen that you can search and then look for the answers for. I think, you know, it's, like you said, it's a bit of a debate, but I think it's great for people that are starting out, you know, learning the way they ask questions, the type of answers you can give, and then also how and where's this content associated with those answers. Yeah. Just to maybe show you guys, if you go into the Microsoft Learn site, right? Here in the bottom, they've got links to the journey for the certifications and then also the poster that I've just shown you guys. So there's quite a lot of comprehensive detail onto that. Something else to mention, if you work for a partner, I don't know if it's still the same, but it counts towards the competency. Yeah. Yeah, and that's huge. Yep. There's power ups. Yes. Yep. And yep, can do that. So yeah, that's I think all from my side. But you know, there's a lot of information in here. I'm not sure at the conference in Vegas if there's going to be a track on certifications. Not sure. So yeah. But yeah, cool. Thanks, David.
Thanks, Monet. Feeling clever already. So I think that opens up a pretty interesting discussion around using open book. You know, so if you know where to find the answer, that's the same as knowing how the thing works. Who's been using ChatGPT or Copilot quite a lot? Are you feeling cleverer or dumber at this stage? Okay. You don't just take it to answer. You actually ask it to explain it to you and then apply it. I think that's a pretty good answer, because you could just take it on face value and try and copy that code and use it. But you know, when there's deadlines looming and all of these sort of things, it's attractive. But I think in time you're going to pay for it. I think if you just take it at face value and not research and ask it, you can ask it you can ask it awesome questions to explain its answer. You could tell it. Really, 5 or 15, 16, 5, really. That's brilliant. I'm going to ask that question. That's a good question. Maybe that's why I don't understand what it's telling me. It's explaining it to me like a 21-year-old. Good. 47. What? So that might be my vitality age, but it's not. Any other questions or comments on certification, and who's done certifications on our platform? Did you find it valuable? Do you recommend it?
Okay, there's two things, right? So you can learn some stuff just following the cert paths and all of that and getting the exam and the piece of paper, right? That's important. Probably not going to get a job if you don't have any certs. Like, you got to have the certs. But almost more important is you also have to know how to do the work. And they are often different things. Just because you know how to do it doesn't mean you can pass the exam. So they're two separate things, but you have to be able to do both. And if you're hiring anybody, it's really hard to know if they can do the work, because you can't just look at the certs and be like, oh yeah, he knows all this stuff, because like he can pass a test. But yeah, you do need the tests. It's sort of like ChatGPT, right? Where like it can give you this bunch of information that if you memorize it and you can regurgitate it to some extent in the exam, like you sort of have that information, but you don't necessarily know what it means or how to apply it. Yeah.
So from my experience, the reason why I did the search in the beginnings was I was from ProCode, and I needed to do like an email template solution, and there was the CRM Dynamics marketing module. So just to know at which point to add the code, I needed to know how to configure it to its max. And but that D365 specialist certificates are quite hard if you don't know the model-driven apps in its core, the fundamentals of the Power Platform. So I failed it the first time, then I went to App in a Day, and I saw that this looks like CRM. So then that's how I could put everything together, because there's no videos on Udemy or anywhere for the marketing module. So using the fundamentals from the model-driven and the trainings helped to pass that marketing certification.
And I also think that there's usually so many things, ways and avenues to get to an answer, right? So I mean, if somebody asks you to build a solution, there's so many different ways that you could actually get to the same result. But if you go through the certification, it sort of gives a hint as to what Microsoft would prefer you to do, you know, and the one that uses the most licenses. And so they give you the blue or the red pill, right? And you need to make that decision up front. But that's sometimes you have to ask the customer. You have to say, listen, this project you want to do, is there budget for licensing? And sometimes they say no. And then it's like, well, that's it. You have to design the solution. And if you've given them the risks, because there are risks, there are downfalls, auditing, you know the definition of an auditor, right? somebody who comes in after the battle to come and stab the wounded. Forget about auditors. So, but I think it's sometimes a question to ask the client, and if they say that they're retrenching people, they're not going to be able to spend money on licensing right now. It's you have to try and get around that. Unfortunately, it's not always ideal, but it's much easier if the client says no problem. It doesn't happen very often though.
Questions from the exams. I thought you were an auditor. I'm asking actually some of the questions in exams, not from the community in MVP.
There are people who contribute, but it's not necessarily, they need to only be an MVP. Or to the normal documentation as well. So if you go and have a look at the documentation on GitHub and actually
I was just saying, yeah, Tian's still pretending to listen to us. Yeah, I'm saying the Microsoft exams are actually better than the vast majority of exams in the industry, right? A lot of, like, I made the joke about like, oh, you need the certification just so you can get the job or whatever. But the Microsoft ones are a lot better at actually testing that you know the stuff than other ones. Like the Nintex ones are a joke. Like they're a joke. Yeah, but that's it with a lot of the industry exams. It's just a piece of paper. The Microsoft ones are better, but it's not the end point in being able to do the work. So you still got to push beyond them.
a very long time ago, after doing my MCSE, but this was like proper many moons ago. So I remember at my first project, first job, I had to go and install Office, I think it was 27, and WinZip, which is not a free product, by the way. And I remember walking into this client, just fresh MVP or MCSE badge everywhere, kit, everything. And I remember looking at these things, I'm like, I'm not trained for this. I don't know how to do this. We managed to survive, but so I think that's a good point. You know, the fact that if you've got the certification, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can do the job. When I think you spoke about it as well, that certification is important, but that crawling in the trenches at 2 o'clock in the morning, exploring different ways to get around a solution, that's when you learn. That's deep learning. That stuff you never forget. And I think it's always that. I always say that if you just ask somebody how to get somewhere, they're going to tell you, well, do X, Y, and Z, and you'll get there. But if you struggle with something for a bit, you're going to go left, and you're going to say, okay, no, this is not working. But in the way, or in that process, you've learned 10 different things. And then you go right a bit, and you say, okay, this is not working either. And then you've learned 10 additional things. So by the time you get to your destination, you've learned 30 different things that's stuck around here somewhere. So in future, that comes in handy. So, but that takes time and like hair and stuff that you lose in that process. So good. Any other questions or comments or suggestions? Is there one on the chat? Maybe come off mute. Oh, have a look at what's in the chat. So, what's in the chat? So, Tian said he echoes that. Not sure what that was. That's about 7 minutes ago. Who can remember what we spoke about 7?
It was on Rod's comment
Then
about
reality is very different.
Being valuable,
And
but
then
it's not necessarily real life.
Yeah. And then sometimes those questions, especially if you've got a lot of experience on something and they ask you a particular way, and it's almost like, well, I know that you could do this in this way, but do they expect me to know this? Do they expect me to download the solution file, extract the zip and actually go and manipulate this thing in is yeah. So yeah, and that's unfortunately what you do in the wild. And then we've got a question. I've been getting this error when scheduling an exam. Is it on Microsoft side or I don't know. What's the error? There was an issue scheduling your exam. Please try again later. I would say just give it a few minutes and try again. If it doesn't work, I don't know what to do. Yeah, they've got it. And then maybe they say contact support. I'll click that button. So sorry, that's the best answer you're going to get right now. Let me know if there's anything else I cannot help you with. Any other questions? Thank you very much, guys. I believe there's pizza outside. All right, so take double because we. Ayan, thank you very much to Kavumo Solutions. Manny, stand up. Thanks for sponsoring the pizzas. There's a reason why we call him Money Penny. Thank you very much, everybody. Drive safely. Cheers.